Fronteiras do Pensamento de hoje apresenta a segunda parte da conferência O Espírito de Nossa Época, com o escritor e jornalista Tom Wolfe. Acompanhe agora.
A third huge change that has taken place is that these notions are being tossed aside right and left. I'll give you an example from the world of art. In art today, in the United States, I do not know the Brazilian situation in art. Art is considered the special preserve of a charming aristocracy. That term, charming aristocracy, was a coinage of Catal Mendez, a Frenchman in the 1880s. And he made the famous statement, he said, we, meaning we writers, he was a poet, we writers, we don't write for that rabble, that mob that Zola and Maupassant and Flaubert so enjoy reaching. He said, we treasure writers like Mallarmé, Baudelaire, and Rimbaud. They don't care about meaning, they just care about wafts of sensibility. And they write not for the rabble, which by then, and today, of course, the rabble, the mob, is now known as the middle class. They don't write for the middle class. They write for a charming aristocracy. And that means an aristocracy of taste. Now, it's one thing to have a taste for Mallarmé, Rimbaud, and Baudelaire. It's quite another to have a taste for anybody who is different, anyone who baffles the middle class. But this has been the result of the original idea of a charming aristocracy. The word entertain is a very simple word. It means to entertain someone is to give that person a pleasant time, a pleasant experience without physical exertion. I think that entertainment should be a platform on which you build toward all of the great exciting upper reaches of creativity. But if you don't entertain, I think you're not fulfilling an obligation to the reader or the gallery goer, museum goer. But that's just my way of looking at it. Now that idea of the charming aristocracy and liking a preference to what the middle class does not like has led to some interesting results. Tom Stoppard, the British playwright, wrote a play called Artist Descending the Staircase, in which one of the characters says, imagination plus lack of skill gives us modern art. That's the story of Picasso. Picasso quit art school at the age of 15 because he felt that they had taught him everything that they knew, everything that they could teach him. Unfortunately, it was the very next year, that he would have taken perspective and anatomy. So as a result, his early career, he was a realist painter. Look at an interior of any Picasso painting that's in a room. The back part of the painting, behind the figures in front, is all gray fog. Every room has gray fog. And why is that? Because he doesn't know where those perspective lines go. So he just he turns it into fog. Why is it that All Hands by Picasso or Matisse look like clumps of asparagus you just got from the supermarket. Why? He should have stayed on that year and learned how to draw hands. Now, I think Picasso should be renowned for his verbal inventions. The Mademoiselles d'Avignon, these hairless prostitutes, I'm talking about the head, and the faces are distorted, their eyes all over the place. And that's considered a seminal point in modern art because in its favor is the fact that there's no skill involved. Today, do a fast forward, there is something that is highly thought of at Yale University called de-skilled art. Somebody like Tom Stoppard can make what he thinks is a joke. Imagination without skill. Now it is a theory and an urge. The idea is that skill, whether it's drawing or using color in harmonious or intentionally jarring ways, is a trick. It's deceitful to present art that way. It's in effect, it is dishonest. So you have to de-skill the artist. It's not hard these days because most artists go through art school without ever having, in the United States, without ever having a life class, drawing from a model. Drawing from a model and drawing the model's hands, I mean, that's something a young artist should not be put through because it might kill his spirit. And so this young artist is not put through it. And it's gotten to the point that this is a development of the last 2 years. It is now considered that painting itself, sculpture in the ordinary sense, is considered finished. It is so much part of the past, so backward, that you really shouldn't bother. Because today, art should not be a visual experience, it should be a conceptual experience. And this has led to two kinds of new art. One is no-hands art, and one is tenure art. And I'll give you some very quick examples. Glenn Lowry, the head of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, says that Richard Serra is the greatest living American sculptor and possibly the greatest sculptor in the world. Well, Richard Serra places orders with the foundry, and he orders walls made of Corten steel, which rusts very easily, but that's all right. And unionized elves take these walls and put them in various places that he designates. Some were put in front of a new federal building in New York, the Javits Federal Building, put in the plaza in front of the building. More than 1,400 employees of that building signed a petition begging the National Arts Commission to get rid of this sculpture. And it was signed by more than 24 judges. So this was not the custodians who were doing this. As a result, finally, they were removed. This made Richard Serra's career. The fact that they were removed has made him the greatest living American sculptor, because he's obviously dealt a crushing blow to the tastes of the rabble and of the mob. Jeff Koons is an interesting case. A typical Jeff Koons production is to have photographs taken of himself, shall we say, slogging away with a well-known Italian prostitute. These photographs are then sent to Switzerland, and elves there Swiss elves turn these into ceramic pieces that people can buy for enormous prices. He has made an absolute fortune on no hands. This is both, let's see, are examples of no hands art. There are artists who do this kind of thing. There's an artist who's known as Pope L, who filled a large gallery space with old automobile and truck tires. He created a path through the tires, and up on a balcony that was created out of wood were some what were called body bags. In fact, they look like just the same things that you use to throw out the trash. You can't tell that they're body bags, but you are informed in the legends that that's what it is. He calls this homage to Alan Capro. Alan Capro was a so-called performance artist about, oh my God, 30, 40 years ago. There we have an example of not only no hands art, but tenure art. Now, you may wonder, how does an artist who puts old tires in a gallery make any money? You can't buy it and take it home. I mean, I've never met anybody who could do that, much less want to take it home. That's where tenure art comes in. If you can build up enough of a reputation, you'll be hired by a university's art department. And if you can hang on for 10 years, you have tenure, which means you'll have a salary for the rest of your life. When you retire, you'll have at least a livable, respectable pension. So that's tenure art. Now, one might say, well, the world of painting and sculpture and the rest of it is not something that we should all worry about, and I don't worry about it. I have a lot of fun writing about it, but I don't worry about it. But this is just a leading edge of a desire of one charming aristocracy or another to reverse the values of the rabble, of the mob. For a start, everybody who wants to be part of the charming aristocracy is an atheist or says he's an atheist. If you even intimate that you might be religious, you're out. You're out. And they also, it's reached the point that if you are for the United States and anything really that it doesn't have to be as serious as Iraq. If you're for the United States, you're out. In other words, patriotism brands you as a yokel, a yahoo. And so I had a lot of fun during the war in Iraq, because I often have dinner with people who would be called intellectuals, or they're writers, they're journalists. I would bring along an American flag pen, kind of thing you usually wear in a lapel. And I would walk into a room and I would hold it in front of them. And they would shrink back into the corner. It was like approaching a werewolf with a cross. And the werewolf has now had it. I'm not exaggerating I'm a little bit of exaggeration, but the sensibility there. It is it becomes more and more of a problem to have an intelligentsia that has values so different from that of the population in general. Because let's say, and as I said, the United States is a very religious country. If your religious beliefs are being challenged, naturally you look to figures of authority to back you up, because you're not an authority, you're a so-called ordinary person. If you want to be considered an aristocrat of taste, or just simply someone who's with it, no matter what your actual beliefs, you reverse them. And I know a lot of people who do that. There are lots of secret Christians. It's like the early days of Christianity. They meet at night in various places. Now, and finally, and this is also an extremely serious matter in the United States. I don't know how far it's come in Brazil, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't similar. And that is the arrival of neuroscience and the theory of genetics. The geneticists and the neuroscientists believe that there's no such thing as free will. You don't have free choice in your life. The image the metaphor they use, the conceit that they use is if you throw a rock in the air and in mid-flight you give that rock consciousness, that rock will give you 12 airtight reasons why it is going in exactly the direction it wants to go. And you can't dislodge its conviction that it's going in the direction that it has chosen. Now, to translate that into human terms, one of the great genetic theorists named Edward O. Wilson said that every human brain is born not as a blank wall, a tabula rasa, waiting to be filled in by experience. It's born as a negative, like the negative from a camera, getting ready to be slipped into developer fluid. Now, that negative can be developed well, it can be developed poorly, but all you're going to get is what's on that negative at birth. And that also means the implication is that you have been programmed genetically. And one of the tenets of this belief is that it really is, well, forget soul. There's no soul. That always comes in quotation marks. There's no mind. That's in quotation marks. You know, software is running you. There's no self. They put that in quotation marks. Read 2 or 3 pages. It looks like the pages have dermatitis. There's so many of these quotation marks. So it's this program. It's this program that is running your life. And you are simply a machine that will always react in a certain way to certain conditions. I was at a conference recently. Incidentally, I'm the social secretary of neuroscience and genetics. I have no illusions about my scientific talent, but I am the social secretary. I went to a conference of neuroscientists and geneticists who were saying if people do not have free choice, and they were absolutely convinced of that, this should affect the law. I mean, if somebody has no choice but to do what they did, how can you send them off to jail? How can you punish them? So finally, in the discussion period, I raised my hand and I said, I think we have a problem of what is known as reflexivity here. If nobody has freedom of choice, why should we believe anything that you all have said for the last hour and a half? And it's true. Long ago in sociology, there was a conviction, really, certainly a strong theory, that all ideas, all concepts are socially derived. And then one day, another sociologist said, wait a minute, if they're all socially derived, so is the concept that all theories are socially derived. They got rid of that. They got rid of that particular theory. But neuroscience and genetics are fulfilling a prediction of Nietzsche in the 1880s, at the time that he said, God is dead, by which he meant not that God was dead, but that God was dead in the hearts of most educated, well-to-do Europeans. And he said, because of this, these were predictions. And it seems to me you sort of have to credit him with these prophecies, even if you don't like anything else he said. He said, in 25 years from now, this is talking about the 1880s, he said, you will see the rise of barbaric nationalistic brotherhoods whose only desire is to take the assets that other people have. And he said, this will lead very quickly to wars such as never have been waged before. Wars catastrophic beyond all imagining. Now just think of that. First he predicts Nazism and communism. Then he predicts the First World War, the Second World War. And because that's pretty good predictions, I pay attention to what he says about the 21st century. And he mentions the 21st century, he mentions the 20th century. He said that religions would stagger along during the 20th century with whatever was left of the spirit of the 19th century. But finally they would stagger to an end and they would die of osteoporosis. Then he said would come something worse than the worst of the great wars. He said, this will be the eclipse of all values. He said, the eclipse of all values will create a pain such as literally unimaginable today, because the conviction will be that no idea has validity. You have thought of this idea to give yourself an advantage. That will always be the supposition. And so why should we believe anything that you have said when you're doing it for utterly selfish purposes? I think that time has begun. We're in that time right now. It's starting with genetics and neuroscience. More and more people, I think, and I seem to meet such people all the time, really feel that the fix is in. Your children are either born smart or they aren't. There's no use trying to prod them to do anything better or anything more. Even if they have bad habits, there's really not a whole lot of use. You can try to correct them. Maybe you should try. But don't break your back trying to do this. This is the beginning. These ideas have just been created since 1975, so they're really not very old. About 34 years old as things go. I predict this will all increase, that pain will go greater and greater. But the last thing I want to do is leave you with an unhappy feeling or a negative message. Because I remember in England in the from about 1810 to 1830 was a period much like our own. It was a period in which women began to wear see-through dresses, much more extreme than anything that you're likely to see today. There was a popular hallucinogenic among well-to-do people, educated people, and that was laughing gas, nitrous oxide. And people would go off into lyrics of metaphorical bliss based on the experiences they had under laughing gas. And this period, probably the most decadent in British history, was followed by the Victorian era, the most prim, proper, moralistic time in the history of England. So whatever I have said tonight that sounds the least bit negative, don't worry. Be happy. It's all going to be all right very, very soon. In any case, it's all right with me. You all have been so wonderful. I so thank Brascain and everyone who's made it possible for me to be here tonight. And God bless you all. Thank you.
Você assistiu à segunda parte da conferência O Espírito de Nossa Época, com o escritor e jornalista Tom Wolfe. No próximo mês, acompanhe aqui, na URGS TV, mais um especial Fronteiras do Pensamento.